compensate for the decline in imported food. Britain's dependence on imported food with its elongated supply routes made it an ideal system for the Germans to cut Britain's food supply and possibly even starve the country in submission. So in order to stimulate a structural realignment of agriculture, the state guaranteed considerably higher prices for virtually all agricultural commodities. We might see this as like the idea of the carrot approach. In effect, we're going to encourage farmers to change their system of farming as a result of higher prices, but recognising the fact that such a system of higher prices had not led to a very dramatic increase in arable farming in the First World War, the government decided to implement the state direction of agriculture by establishing war agriculture executive committees, one for each county in England and Wales. And in effect, the government implemented a national scheme to increase the arable acreage each year. For example, in 1939 to 40, the intention was to plough an additional 2 million acres of land, whereas this continued as a series of campaigns, and in effect, the Ploughing Up campaign, converting pasture land to arable cropping, was justified on the fact that, according to the government figures, it produced considerably more, arable land produced considerably more calories per acre than if it was left as pasture and livestock farming. As we'll appreciate, the government, for the first time, had to play a key part in mechanisation, particularly in the form of encouraging the use of the tractor in lieu of horses. In the late 1930s, there were roughly in the region of about 500,000 or so working horses in Britain used for ploughing and cultivation activities. The 5 million acre increase in arable land which took place during the war was clearly too great for the horse population to have coped with it. And tractors provided a very effective means of raising food production during this crucial period. Wartime changes were really hailed as a remarkable success story. And as we'll see by moving on, the impact of food production during the war was deemed to be outstanding. In the words of the Minister of Food, quote, by 1944, there had been compared with pre-war production a 90% increase in wheat, 80% increase in potatoes, 45% increase in vegetables, and a 19% in sugar beet. It's important to stress, though, that this wartime increase in arable production was primarily a result of the wartime conversion of grassland to arable farming. Crop yields remained relatively static, and as a result, the government scheme focused on increasing the area of arable land devoted towards these individual crops, rather than necessarily trying to increase yields per acre. The 5 million acre or so increase in the arable acreage during the war totally surpassed that achieved during any previous period of agricultural development. And one of the key features of this was, moving on please, was wartime increase in mechanisation. Tractors and their ancillary equipment were instrumental in facilitating the wartime expansion of arable farming, particularly in terms of the number of tractors, which rose dramatically. You're talking about, in England and Wales, somewhere in the region of about 50,000 or so tractors in 1939. By the end of the war, by 1946, they were about in the region of 180,000, more than a trebling increase in mechanisation. This pace of mechanisation was really unprecedented in the annals of agrarian history. It's calculated, for example, that what happened during the war, based on pre-war trends, if pre-war trends had continued without the war, it would have taken 15 years to reach the situation which Britain had achieved by 1945. But, moving on, if you look at tractors, one of the issues which merits consideration is that Tractors, in the case of Britain, weren't necessarily the most sophisticated machines. For a variety of reasons, Britain had to depend primarily on Fordson tractors, which were in some cases really technologically inferior to their competitors. These were basically utilitarian pulling machines, whereas some of their competitors like Massey Ferguson had three-point hydraulic systems. In effect, if you look at this particular tractor, wartime shortages meant that in effect you got iron wheels. These were referred to as spade lugs, whilst they provided better grip in when the soils were wet. This was really a pragmatic response to the fact that Britain had a very chronic shortage of rubber, and it was really one of the few ways in which these tractors could be mobilised for the war effort. Tractors also offered the opportunity to train new. It was much easier to train a new recruit to drive a tractor than if you had to depend on horses. They enabled the ploughing and cultivation of land to be undertaken at a much faster rate. For example, in terms of ploughing heavy land, it might require in Britain on the heavy soils a team of up to 3 horses to pull a single for a plough, with a work rate of less than 1 acre a day. In contrast, a tractor working under some similar conditions would be able to plough at least 3 times as much land. In a similar way, using a tractor to pull a binder was much faster, and it eliminated the need for frequent breaks for the animals to replenish their strength. The pre-war tractor market, as I mentioned, was dominated by Fordson. The Fordson Model 10 was first produced in any quantity in the early 1930s, but it was little changed from the Model F of 1917. Consequently, by the outbreak of the war, the machines were far inferior to those produced by other companies. They were difficult to start, particularly in cold weather, had a high petrol consumption, and a relatively inefficient transmission system. The great virtue was that they were relatively cheap, and the point was that Ford was really the only manufacturer which had the necessary capacity to significantly increase production during the war. I labour this point because during a period of rapid agrarian change, it's important to bear in mind that the mechanisation which became available wasn't necessarily the fact that it was always the most appropriate or superior to the alternatives. When we look at kind of like the further dissemination of agricultural innovations, including precision farming, we might kind of like raise the issue that possibly what we've got is not necessarily what's available to be adopted isn't necessarily the most efficient. In a similar way, when you look at the use of tractors, the wartime shortage of farm machinery, much of the farm machinery in the 1930s had been designed, or at least it had been built by local blacksmiths for use by horses. It meant that existing horse-drawn equipment had to be converted to be pulled by the tractor, and in many cases, existing implements were far too small or narrow to use the tractor's full capacity. Tractors, as I mentioned, and their result equipment were instrumental in promoting the wartime expansion of rural farming. But in effect, what we're seeing is the fact that they weren't necessarily almost the most suitable. Perhaps if we had used slightly more other models of tractors, and more importantly, if we'd had the resources to increase the supply of tractor implements, agricultural production could have increased even more dramatically. But moving on, please. The post-war period, after the war, really was characterised by an unprecedented increase in agricultural output and productivity. This is really kind of like the period when we see the dissemination and adoption of really the benefits of the technological changes which had become available in the 1930s, and transformed agriculture production in this period. If you look at the volume of output, output increased very significantly, averaging about 2.8% between 1945 and 1965. Yields of arable crops increased roughly about threefold in the same period, and there was significant corresponding increase in the output and productivity of the livestock sector. It's widely adopted that these increases were primarily the result of the widespread application of scientific and technological knowledge. What differentiates this post-war period from previous periods is the fact that during the post-war decades, these technological innovations were widely assimilated by the farming community. During the Second World War, it was really kind of like the leading or larger farmers, often being on the wartime committees which governed agriculture in this period, which were instrumental in encouraging this transformation of agriculture. Even at the end of the war, large numbers of farmers still depended on horses as their main source of supply. They'd not really taken on the mechanical innovations which could revolutionise production. In effect, many of the innovations, as we've noted, like milking machines, combines, tractors, were available in the 1930s, but they're not necessarily been as adopted to the same extent as they might have done. Moving on, please. The post-war agricultural revolution, which really covers the 1940s onwards up to the 1980s, was really kind of like the adoption of some the widespread adoption of mechanization in the form of tractors, milking machines, combine harvesters. They'd all been used prior to the outbreak of the Second World War, but were widely adopted. They became labour-saving initiatives in this period. And the distinguishing feature of the post-war period was not necessarily the development of new, more productive ways of farming. Certainly, there were some very important initiatives in the use of the development of herbicides and pesticides to kill weeds. Large-scale, much more powerful tractors became available. Farming became really kind of like a business as opposed to a way of life. But the question still remains is why were these existing and new scientific systems of production so rapidly assimilated by farmers in the post-war decades? And I think to a large point that this reflects the role of the state. Particularly credit should be given to the efforts of the newly established National Agricultural Advisory Service, or so-called NAS. It played a key role in persuading farmers to adopt more productive methods. With the variety of other organisations which became available, one of the things which it did, instead of directing farmers, as they'd done in the war, to do certain activities to mechanise, these post-war organisations reached out and made strenuous efforts to talk to farmers on a personal basis with their representatives who would be responsible going out and meeting farmers and also organising talks and other activities, and as well as running demonstration farms in order to adopt the more productive methods which are available. Machinery manufacturers in this period also played a role in disseminating the benefits of mechanisation, not only through their mass advertisements in the farming press, but also in a similar way to NAS and the other organisations, making personal contacts with farmers. In effect, you're really seeing the mass adoption of these technological innovations. Moving on, please. It's very easy to assume that the pre-war pace of agricultural change really was a spontaneous development which reflected the conditions of the time. When we look at the post-war revolution in farming, you've got to place a great deal of emphasis on the important role played by the British state. During the Second World War, as I mentioned earlier, it had provided guaranteed prices for the main agricultural products. It had provided those in what you might regard as like a carrot to encourage farmers to do certain activities. But it had also directed farmers to carry out these activities by requiring them to plough certain fields, by requiring them to adopt fairly radical changes in the way they farmed. After the war, many of these wartime initiatives were enshrined in legislation, in particular the landmark 1947 Agricultural Act. And this committed the state to providing guaranteed prices for most agricultural commodities in peacetime. It was really a revolutionary development because previous phases of agricultural state direction of agriculture had largely been confined to conditions when Britain was at war. It was also, and less obviously, committed to promoting efficiency, in particular, encouraging farmers to adopt more productive methods, including mechanisation. And it did so in a variety of ways. With the guaranteed prices, the state implemented an annual price review system whereby it assessed, or the Minister of Agriculture assessed the extent to which the cost of agricultural production had increased from the previous year, and guaranteed prices were increased, but not to the same extent as the increased cost of production. In effect, farmers were required really to get larger to produce more in order to maintain their living standards. Efficiency was also provided by the fact that state support for agriculture was increasingly shifting from maintaining high guaranteed prices, but more importantly, to shifting to providing incentives for grants and subsidies, encouraging farmers for infrastructure improvements, including tax incentives for capital investments, including mechanisation. The outcome was the fact that Britain became very highly mechanised in this period. Moving on, please. When we look at it, though, we also want to remember that the state made a determined effort in the 1950s and 60s to actually try and encourage people to leave agriculture. During this period in Britain, the country was experiencing what you might regard as full employment, where less than about, for a large part of the period, less than 3% of the workforce were out of work. You've got a decision by successive governments to try and encourage agricultural workers to move to industry, to manufacturing industry. And in consequence, what we're talking about are pressures designed to encourage the shift of labour to manufacturing industries, and also because of the fact that although farm workers were still relatively low paid, what we're talking about is the fact that the cost of mechanisation was considerably less than the cost of employing large numbers of workers. In effect, what we're seeing is really the fact that the state, or the British state in particular, is trying to shift the agricultural workforce into industry, and farmers are really faced with the idea of how to cope. Mechanisation appears to be the great opportunity to address the conditions which are faced. We've seen, in the sense of robotics or precision farming beginning to emerge, but in effect, precision farming or the challenges to disseminating the benefits of precision farming might actually reflect the way in which British agriculture has been transformed. It's clearly evident that although British agriculture has gone through a series of revolutions since the 18th century, development has clearly not necessarily been all that linear or even seamless. If you look back, for example, there was considerable opposition initially to the development of utilising thrashing machines in lieu of the traditional methods of separating the grain from the straw. In effect, one of the problems which we come from is that when you look at the transformation of British agriculture, much of it could be explained as a pragmatic response to the circumstances of the time. The transformation which took place during the Second World War was a pragmatic response to the fact that the British state was heavily dependent on imported food, and it had to make a determined effort to actually raise agricultural production in order to save the country from possible starvation. In a similar way, when you actually explore the post-war changes, after the Second World War, food shortages were still widespread. The British government, faced with a financial problem at the end of the war, was forced to continue with the wartime system of rationing. And in effect, what we're seeing is that post-war rationing was actually worse than actually during the darkest days of the Second World War. In effect, worldwide food shortages played a key role in actually promoting the state's commitment to agricultural expansion. I labour this point because when we look at the way in which agriculture might be transformed in the future with robotics, when you look at the way in which other countries, which have perhaps been much slower than the industrialised nations to adopt this system, the structure of farming, with its dominated in many cases by family farming units, with an abundant supply of low-cost labour, might actually inhibit the adoption of the latest technology. In the case of Britain, the Second World War period was really a crucial period in promoting mechanisation. The way in which post-war NASA and other agencies reached out to promote the dissemination of more productive methods. They didn't kind of like, as in the case of the Second World War, simply direct farmers to do them, but they reached out through a variety of local contacts with making personal contacts with the farming individual farmers, ensured that there was a widespread adoption of mechanisation. We might actually raise a few qualifications about the extent to which mechanisation took place. When you look at Britain's experience, it can provide important lessons for other countries. And if we just move on for a second. In the future, the pace of technological change will likely to continue to increase at an even faster rate in the future. Historical analysis about agricultural mechanisation reveals there's a very significant gap between its initial development and its adoption by the mass of farmers. There's considerable variation between one farmer and another. The history of British mechanisation reveals that in the 1930s, the leading farmers, small in number, what you might regard as progressive, often with substantial areas of land either farmed or rented, played a key role in promoting mechanisation by regarding appreciating that mechanisation was the main way to remain cost effective and to better compete with overseas food suppliers. But at the other end of the spectrum, you might regard there's a large number of traditional farmers who, for a variety of reasons, perhaps ranging from the fact they're family farmers, they see little point in mechanisation as a way of saving labour. There's little desire to let their children migrate to the manufacturing industry. These kind of really are going to be a difficult group to convert. One of the processes to remember is, though, that during this period, particularly the post-war period, that British farming became much more specialised and concentrated, and each farm concentrated on a smaller number of enterprises than it had done in the 1930s. This only not only generated or justified developed the benefits derived from economies of scale, but when you actually look at these different farmers, it was the post-war decade witnessed a dramatic decline in the number of what you might regard as traditional farmers. Not only the fact that traditional farmers were more importantly, the fact that many traditional farmers were being increasingly squeezed out of the industry. They might have remained as farmers in a technical sense, but they were forced in order to maintain their income to take up other alternative forms of gainful activity, like members of their family being encouraged to seek ways of supplementing their income, or by being forced to engage in diversification activities, trying to generate income from non-agricultural activities. Above all, the British experience of mechanisation reveals the success of post-war state agencies in disseminating by using personal contact with farmers to encourage them to become more adoptive and more effective. In effect, when we look at it, we should realise that if we're talking about mechanisation, the benefits of mechanisation might not necessarily be immediately apparent to all the farmers, particularly the traditional farmers, which have so far still continued to be important in agriculture. Many thanks for listening to me. I'm sorry about the confusion about not being able to attend. I'd be very, very pleased to respond to any questions you've got either today, or if you'd like to email me either at my work address, which is jmartin at reading.ac.uk, or to email me at my home email, jandbmartin32@gmail.com. Many thanks. I've been very, very pleased to answer any questions.
Test works. Okay, we thank you for your very nice presentation. Unfortunately, we are running a little bit short of time. So if you have time for questions afterwards. Now, I'm calling Dr. Nicola Trendov. Nicola. Okay, this is your turn. So you have a master degree in agribusiness, you told long time ago. So then you gain a PhD in digital agriculture. And today you're working at the Office of Innovation of the FAO, and you are leading the digital agriculture team. So you are based in Rome, you told me, but you are a supporter, like David is, of the Juventus from Torino.
I have two Juventinos.
Raise your hand if you are from... okay. Okay. I'm from Anderlecht, here in Brussels. Okay. No, no one is perfect, yes. So you told me also, fun fact about you is that you visited 60 different countries.
I work in those countries, yeah. Like tourism.
Okay. So who's beating this 60 different countries? No? No? We have our champion here? There will be no BrIAS program without technical issues. This is all part of the BrIAS program. Yeah.
It's kind okay. It's the full screen. No, well, yeah.
Yes, it's coming.
I have from here.
Super. So almost ready. Yeah. You can put in your pocket.
Let me how it is.
You can try. Test 1, 2. No. Zip-a-dee-doo, do, zip-a-dee-yeah. Works? If not, you can use the microphone here. With this, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Which one? I think both are. Yeah. No, now it's working. Great. Technology. Yeah. We're talking a lot about the technologies. Yeah. Thanks. As I was introduced, I'm Nicola from FAO, from the Office of Innovation. We try to do fancy things like all of you are trying to do, of course. I enjoyed your presentations. I also worked previously in Europe, and fancy technological and research organization also at the university. I was teaching the subjects about, and then we in Hungary, more precisely, and we use this fact. But then when you're coming to the real world, that's also a presentation of the title, I would like first to, usually also I was at university teaching, so, and I'm asking my students where they are from, and so I would like, you're all around here, just to ask a bit, do you have any working experience from developing countries? Anybody that have working experience from developing country?
Does it count?
Italy? No, you're developed. It's developed. Depends, Basilicata or Piemonte?
Brazil.
Brazil is developing, that's true. Great, so only one. That's my thing, because this is how we can, let's say, go the direction and the discussion. I'll go through some examples, but I'll not go too much to the details. As an FAO, we use a neutral language. I cannot showcase you what the private companies are doing in Africa. I cannot show some specific cases that the governments are good or bad, because our language has to be neutral and to be the advocacy, to do a policy, to advise, to share the knowledge. But also recently, we established the Office of Innovation, which office was established in 2019. And that came through this demand, that usually the Global South is a bit waking up later than the Global North. And to do such a fancy, nice things and technologies you are having here, to coordinate these technologies. So we have 4 areas where we, even I didn't know, Emanuele, I learned now that last year you organized an event on Forest Site. So this year we publish a Forest Site publication on harnessing the technologies and the future of the technologies. Even we are talking about teleportation in 2100. Also, and how this can, technological and horizon scanning can we strategically plan and bridge the gap between the global north and the global south. So to leapfrog kind of implementation and scaling in these countries. The second pillar we are mostly is about the connecting and empower. So basically here is the digital agriculture, but also we try to make these innovations also using a frugal approach, also social approach to make them affordable, low cost, accessible, affordable for everyone. And once we test with, once we pilot, we have a couple of projects where we are piloting, testing in different parts of the world. Then we prove it, that it works through public-private partnership, working together with the governments, with universities. Then we are into catalyzing and scaling, but also we have internal Elevate program for scaling internal innovations and internal projects within FAO, not just outside FAO. And then also, which miss in this, but I saw a lot of you mention things that I'll mention also later about the farmers, and that the farmers, where is the presenter, that the tractors love farmers. Indeed, they love it. But then if you want them to adopt all these things, you have to change their mindset, to change their culture, but also to change our culture, because as I told you, at university, sometimes our culture is not innovative, or we think we are innovating something, but sometimes we are not collaborative. We work in silos, in the labs. We don't scaling up outside the things from the labs. And we think always a bit, we are egoist thinking we are the best. And this is something that in the Global South doesn't also work. I think also in Europe it doesn't work. And that's why we also promote this and fostering the innovative mindset and culture of change, but also innovative skills, which is not just to develop the robot or the automation process, but it's parallel work all around it. Well, FAO Mechanization is one of our core business. We have a department that is for plant production protection, and mechanization is incorporated in many areas where we work, tractors, plowers, different type of small mechanization and tools. Also, we know the truth, and we had a lot of publication, a lot of studies on how these are affecting the farmers. So we also apply research. So we also apply findings, and also we strengthen this research collaboration. We develop national strategies for mechanization. We train, we build capacity how to drive tractors, how to maintain tractors through the farmer field school approach and different type of extension approaches. But also we understand and we know that, the mechanization and the beautiful presentation that we had is the digital innovation offer opportunities. Through these studies, through these findings assessment, we saw, especially, for example, Africa is the most youthful population, the growing population, and here, if you want also in Europe, is we have the shortage of labor as well. If you want to attract, we have to make this mechanization fancy for them or the robots. But also, we understand and we know that even though it's attractive, can bridge the gap between the high-tech and the low-tech. The gap is still there. We talk a lot for the last 50, 60 years, how to bridge the gap, but even the gap is in Europe. I'm from Southeast Europe. I live and study in East Europe, and I'm living in West Europe. We're in different gears, in different speed. We are cruising approach. And also in Eastern Europe, whatever you apply in the West does not work in East. It's vice versa. And this is the same from FAO. We cannot apply one size fits all. We have different projects in different countries, and we have different approaches, even in the same topic. Later I'll talk about the drones, something that we fly, even our department. We have experience, and I'll share this experience with you. And also we are partnering, as I said. We have a biggest network of university network. More than 1,000 universities are partnering with FAO on this side, but also relevant organization, institutes like the one that is hosting me currently now, BrIAS. And then this is something that also we leverage resources. We have exchange of programs between global Southeast with global Southwest, like for example from Brazil to Africa, from Africa to Brazil to exchange, to learn. Also from China, the South-South cooperation, where we try to exchange on this knowledge. So from the global perspective, it's a bit different. The hunger is there. We have to say yes or no. Doesn't matter, the facts saying it's there. Population is growing. The technology like automation, robotics are still underestimated. People are not aware, even on a higher level, the politicians, the policymakers. Universities, they don't have the same equipment access like those in the global north. They don't have Horizon Europe, even didn't have a Horizon 2020, even though now with the Horizon Europe, there is opportunity for EU collaboration, and there are a couple of streams on this digitalization and a couple of projects in this area, which I'm happy to see that is finally happening, but still, it's not there. The population is growing, and they'll be bigger. And the biggest uncultivated land, we had this presentation from the colleague from Britain, is that they were forced to cultivate, but then in the global south, nobody forced them, but also they are not attracting to cultivate. So agriculture, even though youth are there, population is there, they're leaving, and they're moving to the urban areas, which Europe is more or less the same. And the population will be big. The arable land is there, but they are not cultivated. We're coming to a scenario that was presented also like from the British colleague, that in the 30s where they import everything. So we have also countries in not just global south, but also in north, where you, especially in East Europe, we have countries where they heavily depend on import of food, even though the land is there, but most of the people are in West Europe. So in East, nobody's cultivating the arable land, like in Hungary, which is one of the plain countries in Europe, and like kind of breadbasket. a lot of land is not cultivated because there are no people to work on it. And the global south also is like, I saw one presentation on 0.9 hectares of land. I don't know which one of the presentation. Well, in the global south, if you get 1.2, you're a big landowner. Most of them are below 0.2, which means even though technically we would like to apply robotics or automation, flying drones for 0.2 hectares, it's not cost effective. So these are the things that we have there, but also we realize that there is a potential opportunity. Of course, you can improve the livelihood, the food sovereignty, so optimization, because in the global south, the supply chain is broken. The food supply chain is broken. Basically, the product you produce today, the day you reach the market, it's already perishable because they have a lot of middlemen, the transportation, infrastructure. So, and also like any type of automation is not applicable because we talk a lot about, and I'll talk in the next slide, is that basic infrastructure does not exist. So, and the problem is also the rural-urban migration. The cities are becoming bigger and bigger. So we have cities like Lagos, more than 20 million people, which Daniel was in Brazil. He knows Sao Paulo is around this. So, and then the rural areas are really empty. There are countries where you travel for 50, 60, 70 kilometers and you cannot find a single village around, like the states in the middle, the central part of the United States, where you have to travel through the famous Route 66 and then you find nothing. So it's more or less the same in some of those countries there, especially in the northern part of Africa. So, as I said, there are different layers. I don't want to teach no one about robotics, about automation. All of you are expert in this area, but you know, there is no feasibility studies. We still don't have feasibility study on particular part of technology that we would like to apply on the field, and we don't have a successful case that this can be scaled up. We are lacking such kind of expertise in the field, not just FAO, but the global south itself, because we don't have them. So we don't have pilots, we don't have trials, so how we will know if it will work or not? But also we don't have infrastructure. As I said, some of the robotics, they are requiring high voltage electricity. And then you have regions in the global south that they have only 8 hours per day electricity. And then imagine if you want to have a glass house to cool it or to heat it for 24 hours, you have only 8 hours choice. And then you go to aggregators, you have two different type of things, which again is not cost effective, because here in the global north, you have optimized for one resource, but because you know this resource exists 24 hours. So also the internet coverage. Most of the countries nowadays, let's say, get more than 60% 3G. 4G is available only in the capital cities. 5G is a fairy tale. Even Daniel don't love it. In Italy also is fairy tale. You have only, in the south is more like 4G, and then 5G is, in Rome you have 5G, that's true. But there is the problem that we have there, that there are a different level of enabling environment that we have to get, so in order to at least start introducing this technology. But not is everything black and gray. There is also a nice blue sky. There are now numerous startups nowadays that we are tracking. We are seeing some of them were joining some of our competition because we organize hackathon challenges, boot camps where we support these startups to grow. They're trying. There are a couple of them in Nigeria, especially for the tomato production, for cassava in Kenya, for the maize, for wheat in Ethiopia. There are startups that are growing nowadays. They are coming, you know, especially those are youth-driven that were studying abroad. They get the knowledge, they're coming, they're trying, they're testing, getting some grants. Things start moving slowly, but still, the gap is very big. And the requirements, because we support them, we know what are their needs, and we usually face with the problems, as I said, like connecting data. There is no standardization. There is no interoperability between the systems. Sometimes you have one ministry with one data set, another one with another data set, one company providing you services with another, a third one with another, so, and then you get confusion. Do not talk about the data privacy, all these things, that's still ongoing discussion. One pioneering, for example, country is only like Rwanda, that they have national AI strategy, and they have e-commerce strategy, such kind of thing that's more or less is consolidated, I will say, a good champion in the countries. Morocco also is one of them. But then when it's coming to the global picture, they still don't have this type of even services for the startup where we can also even trade data, to say to some point. So wireless IoT sensors, this is one of the problems. There is no maintenance. Most of you showed the nice case studies, nice robots, but then even though you deploy, the problem is that kind of we throw this technology, but we don't train them how to maintain the technology or to supply later with, let's say, repairing spare parts. Yeah, and also the problem is with the access. Most of the farmers, they are on feature phones, which means SMS. Most of them are illiterate, it means IVR or voice messages. So these are the things that even though you can give them a nice solution that can be global, for example, like BrIAS is on a global level, then they cannot access to this solution because there is no the basic smartphone with a 3G that can support this solution and get the real-time data. Yes, and they have to run to the nearest town and to come back to catch up data, and then when it's coming, could be late because, for example, the desert locust or small army wall, you know, such kind of insects can come over a night and your yield is destroyed completely. And accreditation, so access. Not many companies are coming to offer those products in the global south because they know, first of all, is the purchasing power, land, small farms, small farmers, many other things like, as I mentioned, infrastructure. So there is no access to them. There is no, even at university level, where they can train students, where they can teach the new generations how to produce locally made to do this. So in a nutshell, this is the conditions and things that we are trying to solve at the moment. And not particularly country by country, but again, through this competition and startups where we are supporting, and also we are a member of the Digital Public Good Alliance. We are promoting open access. We are advising on open solutions where they can plug and play with data and different type of remote sensing technologies free of charge, so they can be enabled to develop their own solution in a low-cost manners. As I mentioned, this is, for example, the drone from Ethiopia, and we need 3 months to get access, to get permission to fly the drone, because still the drones in the global south are heavily under the Ministry of Defense, the military, so there are still no laws, regulations in most of the countries. We had one country, we had the drone, we had the training, everything, and after 2 days during this workshop came the Ministry of Defense with the police and asked us, why you're flying the drones? They said, it's for agriculture. But you're not allowed. But then we said, where is the law? But we don't have law, then how? No? So this is you're coming to this limbo of issues. And then we started to get obtain the license to, and then we hire a local company to do the training for us. Even though we have experts, we are not allowed. Then there was a person from the security agency, person from the ministry, and people from extension office, of course, Ministry of Agriculture, to be there, so that we can also they be present and to see that we fly the drone for agriculture purposes. So 3 days we had for pesticides, for with RGB camera spectrum, basic training, let's say, mapping, field mapping, basic field mapping things to train. And for 70–80% of those people that are from the advisory services, from farmer associations, some private companies as well, businesses, startup businesses, this was first of its kind training for them. They had some basic knowledge about remote sensing, Some of them, they had like even used ArcGIS in the past, kind of things, but not necessarily had, let's say, proper training on how to fly drones. So this is the reality from the field. We also had started with IoT sensors in a controlled environment with glass houses in Uzbekistan. Now we do also in some Caribbean islands, but it's still new, and we're still kind of piloting and testing this kind of solutions that we can scale up in the other countries. So it's still on this process. And then the challenges, opportunities, as I mentioned, is the limited infrastructure, resources, finance, as I mentioned, Horizon, such kind of research funds, a big donation, or even the countries themselves, the allocation for research and development for agriculture is very low, because there are much more priorities than this part. And that's why many countries, they neglect this part, even though there are some, we also support on national agriculture research strategies where we fight to have, more for this part, more to put on innovation part. Facilities are not there. This is also another part, and they don't communicate. So the field trial plots from some agency, like a public agriculture agency that they have, or university, with the private sector is still not connected. So we established 2 digital agriculture innovation hubs. We follow the model of the smart agri hubs from I think Wageningen is leading it, but it's a consortium of many other partners to join them, to make that kind of a battlefield for innovation where everybody's coming and we do something. And then in the same time is the educational barrier. Also at every level, as I mentioned, the farmers are illiterate, so you have to approach in a different way, even though the big farmers are also. And the problem is that not every farmer wants to be progressive and want to grow, want to be a businessman. Most of them are farm gate. They produce, they put it in front of the farm, they are waiting for the middleman, they sell, they get the money, that's it. This is, as I said, part that we're trying to do, the cultural change of innovative and entrepreneurship mindset. And regulatory parts, which I mentioned, these are the challenges. We are trying to go through this. As you know, FAO is serving the government, serving the countries. We are developing digital agriculture strategies, also some policies on this part where we can enable environment for such kind of technologies. But the opportunities are there, as I mentioned, because we depend more and more in Europe on import of food, and traditional markets are there. We import a lot from the global south, but at some point the prices are increasing. One part is inflation, as we all know, but also the other factors that are causing, beside the conflicts around the world, is also that in these countries also there is a shortage of labor, the mechanization is not there, heavily depend on labor force, and the products, the infrastructure, it's not there, the optimization is not there, so that's why they'll become more and more expensive and more rare, I would say, some of the products, because, the optimization and improvement of the value chains are not happening. But the automation can fix this to improve the yield, to improve the quality, also sustainability, the environmental sustainability, and especially nowadays in many countries in the global south, like it's trendy topic, the carbon farming and the carbon credit farming. I know there are a couple of even international challenges. Also in China is a big topic. The venture capitalists put a lot of money on research and development, support a lot of startups on this part. Which many also of them are on automation and robotics, but also economic growth and attracting youth coming back. So basically, and creating a new job, but also we're trying to make some locally made, like Fatto d'Italia, we made Fatto di, country in global south, so that you should be in a local content, because also some of my colleagues presented that should be in a local content, local needs for the local farmers, the solution so that you can attract them. But the risk is there. I mean, I'll say that dependence on technology, because the big companies, big tech companies are providing solutions, and then you depend on that solution, then, you know, like a full package. Like, I don't know, I have Apple, and then Mac, and iPhone, and AirPods, and because I depend on that product, and that's why I'm already equipped with all these things, because if I go to Android, it will not be the same as with iOS. It's the same with agriculture. And then the data, as I mentioned earlier, the interoperability. So basically, we are coming to a point that we can push them, but also to depend on this technology. And sometimes also they sign a contract without of knowing the term and conditions, as most of us doing that. You accept the cookies or you accept terms and conditions just to tick the box to buy something, but you're not reading them. And this is also happening with the farmers in the global south. There are some cases where they, in many countries where the, let's say, the agri-tech ecosystem is developed, they're signing things, but they are not aware that actually they are owner of this data. So, and they can make money from the data, as many farmers in Europe are making money from the data, but they are not aware about that. Also is the social displacement. Basically, we are losing as I mentioned, the community, and then also kind of we can lose the youth because, and also the farmers, as I said, if we push this technology to them, in many cases, they were not happy to have this technology. They were like neglecting, or even like they love their tractor, but also they love the way how they're cultivating the land and producing. And then we are going and say, okay, let's try to change a bit to introduce some innovation technology. And it's like also, I grew up on a farm, and this passion for agriculture, I studied all my life agriculture, not just the master. And my grandfather, we thought a lot about the way how we are producing. Also, we had a couple of durum, but also pigs. We produce durum for meat. And we had a lot of thought, because he said, no, I'm farmer, and he was farmer all his life. He said, you're not gonna teach me how to do things. You know, even I was asking for basic sensors on the plower just to navigate the land. But he knows his land very well, so that's why he said, no, I know my land. I'm cultivating this land for 60 years, and now you're going to tell me where is the gap, how to make it, you know, straight. So these are the things that also of this social displacement could happen, that we lose this part. And the cybersecurity. The systems there are not secure, even in the ministries, at public institution, but also private institution. The way of how they are secured is really low. I mean, many of them official bodies of the governments, they have a Gmail accounts. They don't have a corporate accounts. So this is something that is also, you can understand how vulnerable they are in this part. And also is the environmental impact, because if we mention all these challenges and risks, and we introduce the technology without of proper guidance, environmental risk could be very high if they misuse the power of the automation and the robotics. And as I said in the beginning, the limited access to the technologies, the skill gaps, the cultural resistance is also a problem, but also access to the market. Also, they are not available, these technologies there. Big companies are not interested in selling this to 0.2 hectares. And they're even not producing for such kind of farmers, because for them the revenue is with the big players, or big farms, 10, 20, 100 hectares. Yes, so what are the way forward? Reality on the field. So whatever we produce, we have to co-create together with the farmer, and for the farmer, for the end user. Because many things we produce in silo or in the lab, as I mentioned before, and then we go and then we try to scale up. It doesn't work. We tried many years ago, it doesn't work. Support from the government. We always need the support. The initiative to enable the environment through regulatory framework, policies, to push them. Because if you don't push government for AI strategy, they will not develop it. We pushed the European Union for this because the AI became so big that they felt threatened, that in kind of way, I mean, threatened for people, for all of us. But nobody was talking about AI strategies 7, 8 years ago. Even OpenAI was a company established more than 10 years ago, or even Meta and the rest. They were focused on the GDPR, but now they're focusing on AI. And in the future, we'll be on totally different technology that we don't know what will happen, what will come. As I mentioned, is the public-private partnership. We have to work together. Private is driven, mostly private companies are driving the innovation. This is not a myth, this is a fact, it is true. That's why they are striving to get the latest technology and to develop the best solution so they can be competitive. But also the public should not kind of sleeping, have to take hand in hand and join the forces together. Education, we have to invest a lot in education. Education, as Nelson Mandela said, is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. And I believe all of us here are well educated, still in the education process, those that are students. And we have also to put, when we introduce these technologies, we have to put also efforts on educating about these technologies, not just make them aware, but also how to operate. And yeah, to repeat myself, is the customization for a local context. Always co-create together with the farmers, with the markets, depends to whom this product will serve. Otherwise, it will be another toy, I'm always saying expensive toy, that after 2-3 years will stay on the side and nobody will use on your farm. Yeah. Thank you. Questions?
A couple of questions for you?
Okay, sure.
A lot on the standards.
Just.
Okay. Well.
So we have a question from Leonardo. Is sustainability an issue taken into consideration in developing countries? So
can you repeat more?
asking if sustainability is an issue taken into account in developing countries.
Okay.
Sustainability.
Depends, I'll say. Depends.
Environmental sensibility.
Sorry?
Environmental,
yes.
Sustainability.
To be honest, is not, in my opinion. So my personal opinion, not FAO opinion, just to say. Because my experience from the field, even though I represent FAO, this is what I see from the field, and I think is not. Why? Because when you have hunger, when you have poverty, the whole focus is about to optimize the production. In Europe, we have we have agroecology, I don't know what. But in Global South, also, like I'm born in Macedonia, North Macedonia to be more precise, correctly. You have poverty, you have hunger, and then you have to produce more. Even though I remember when we were small kids, we produce more and we preserve it even for the winter, so that we know, because in the winter there is snow, there is no food to eat. And we apply practices, and we are with the mindset, also in the Global South I see, is with the mindset to produce more, not to sustain. I know there is a lot about this deforestation, all these things, but again, it's human being to survive. And that's why when first you solve the hunger, you solve the poverty, then you can think about sustainability. But I agree, we have to focus, and I feel we focus, we try, we push hard, we have a lot of initiatives to go it hand in hand, to solve the hunger, to solve the poverty, but to be in the sustainable way. We also have, for example, a blockchain for traceability, for child labor, for cocoa value chains, where we try to solve it. But again, you know, it's a small droplets in the ocean, which ocean is hunger. Hope I answered it.
Okay, so
just an addition. Of course, you are meaning that in developing countries is really important to have still first generation agronomists that were very focused in getting a high production with a very few inputs.
Of green revolution.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So,
thank you.
And just to add, is to feed themselves, but also they're export-oriented countries. All of you like pineapple, mango, passion fruit, banana. They're optimizing because the demand from the north is increasing. So it's a lot of issues on this part.
So you have a question now on dependency of technology. an anonymous person is asking you, do you think international standardization could help, and how realistic do you see one or few standards to prevail? So do you think international standardization could help?
A lot.
And how realistic do you see one or few standards to prevail?
I see it happening. I mean, many countries, especially Europe Union on this part is good, are pushing countries to certify, to apply these standards in order their products to be exported to the European Union. And they're putting legislation in the Global South on this. They're trying to do. For example, in Macedonia, we have a lot of ISO, HCCCP standards that we are implementing following the European Union regulations, because we know, even though we are a member candidate since 20 years, I don't know how much, we are trying to get there because we know we depend on that. And like GDPR nowadays is very famous all around the world, not just in Europe. In the States now we have COPPA, I think. So those are standards that are coming and will come more and more. United Nations established the AI high-level body. And probably in the future they're planning, I think, also to establish an UN AI agency or such kind of entity to make a global standards and regulation, all these things. And it's happening, it's coming, but again, because it's a push factor by those that are producing those technologies. And will happen, but again, the Global South is always a bit lagging behind, but it's happening. And I believe this is something that we really have to do, because standardization is something that is winning for all. To trade data, to buy data, to protect data, to enable data, and this is something that we also, as I mentioned, we're a member of the Digital Public Good Alliance. We believe in open access, open content. And we believe this is the future. Thanks.
Thank you. So we thank again Professor John Martin and Dr. Nicola Trendov. That was a great presentation. If you still have some questions for Nicolas, so during the break, you can talk with him. So we resume at 4:15. Next session, 4:15. Thank you.
I invite you to sit for the last in session of the day. There are quite a few people I want to acknowledge also as it's the end of the day. I want to acknowledge Emanuele Garone as the main chair of the whole event across the 2 days. I want also a special thanks to Anja, who is not here. She's here, sorry. Without whom nothing would be here. Thank you, Andres, for being an amazing technician. Also the postdocs and the team at FARI helping out, so thank you all. Yeah, they deserve it. And also, sorry, Luca. So for the last session of the day, it's an interesting theme, and as Emanuele pointed out this morning, as soon as you start talking about agriculture, the Sustainable Development Goals, and robotics, if you just take the Sustainable Development Goals, you could start checking a lot of these sustainable goals. And there is, of course, no surprise here. And even for a small region like Brussels, where there is no land per se to use for agriculture, it is still a very recurring question that we get. How can we be sustainable even in environments like cities or Brussels, where there is close to, there is a lot of population and close to zero land. So today to speak about also robotics in agriculture, give you a bit of a state of play, where we are at. I want to first thank our first speaker, Professor Lorenzo Marconi from the University of Bologna. He will talk about autonomous and semi-autonomous tractors, and will share the experiences from academia to industry. His current research interests include nonlinear control, output regulation for nonlinear systems, control of autonomous air vehicles, robust control, etc. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yes. So thanks also from my side to the organizer for setting up this very nice and stimulating workshop. And so I'm here with a kind of double cap, because I'm a professor at University of Bologna, and I have a research activity that somehow is around robotics. But my field of expertise is more on control. And also as a founder of this spin-off of University of Bologna that is called Field Robotics. So it's my goal today is try to show experiences that we have done here at the University of Bologna for bringing to the market some technology, some ideas that indeed grew up in the university lab. And so, yes. So I like to start with this claim, that is a claim taken from the Strategic Research Agenda for Robotics in Europe, that at a certain point claims that the issue in agriculture is not about a vision. So somehow the vision is pretty clear what we have to do, the idea of precision farming, but indeed about technologies. So how to make that vision dependable, safe, high performance, robust, and so on and so forth. So actually it's technology, not indeed the vision. Let me also share with you a few challenges that characterize our attempts in the last years. And I have also to acknowledge a big national project that we have in Italy, Agritech, involving many universities. And actually some of the ideas that I'm going to present indeed have been developed in these Agritech projects. So the idea to me was indeed reasoning from scratch. So the idea here when dealing with the tractor of the future is not to make autonomous or electric a conventional tractor, but trying indeed to reason from scratch. So to have a vision and to try to develop something without the bias of the conventional mechanical systems, let's say. trying to develop something that is flexible, something that could be expanded to scenarios that are not imaginable in terms of, again, things that could happen in the next years. Something that indeed is sustainable, not only environmental sustainable, but also financially speaking sustainable. It's not indeed a good idea to develop something that costs 100,000 euros, in the sense that indeed the adoption of that technology could be indeed not possible. So something that is sustainable at large. To develop something that is safe, to me, is not acceptable anymore that one of the first causes of death, work death, is in agriculture. So something that should push also on safety and on safe systems. Something that is absolutely integrated with the field. Something that is integrated in the sense that actually could be also co-designed with the plant itself and not simply designed without having in mind the plant, the orchard, the vineyard, or the system that we have to make autonomous or to make and even more automatic. And also there is a big issue to me of business innovation. So right now the market is dominated by the usual big company, John Deere, New Holland, and Kubota, and they are indeed pushing for conventional technologies. They are somehow innovating technologies. They are making more smart technologies, but still with a bias of conventional tractor. And to me, this is a big, big obstacle in indeed pushing new, really new technologies. So the idea also of trying to introduce something that is related to the business innovation, trying again to overcome this big obstacle coming from conventional companies characterizing the market. So a few slides, why electric? We are pushing a lot of systems that are completely fully electric, so not developing something that is hybrid or at some endothermic solutions. And why electric? For many reasons, and to a certain extent, sustainability is the last reason for pushing for electric. So first of all, because if you want to really bring to the field what I would like to call fine field automations, indeed everything should be electric. So trying to bring into the field what is characterizing the transition to pure mechanics to mechatronics in the last 20 years, having machines even more simple, reliable, and robust, and so on and so forth. So actually there is no way of bringing into the field what is the industrial automation without having something that is really indeed electric. Why electric? Because of course there is unmatchable simplicity and also downward scalability. Here I put in comparison a tractor, 60 horse tractor on the right, and somehow the equivalent in terms of power electric engine produced by a company nearby Bologna, Bonfiglioli Group. So you see the footprint in 50 centimeters, you have the same power of a 60 horse tractor. So again, if our goal is to downsize everything, to have something that is smaller, lighter, more sustainable, the transition to full electric solution is definitely unavoidable. And last, to a certain extent, not least, sustainability. Here I acknowledge research carried out by two colleagues in Bologna, Claudio Rossi and Luca Corelli, where in this regional project they proved that actually an orchard could be made completely autonomous and completely off-grid, indeed with a 20 meters square of solar panel. And the idea is, of course, that during the summertime, where actually the production of the solar panel is higher, actually also the kind of energy that is needed to manage the orchard is high. And during the winter time, where maybe the solar panels are not productive or are less productive, even the energy that is needed to manage the field is indeed decreasing. So 20 meters square, 1 hectare. Okay, so something actually that clearly show how everything could be sustainable also in this respect. Everything could be off-grid with 20 meters square of solar panel. So let me show this, how these ideas have been taken by this spin-off, FIR Robotics. It's a spin-off that actually was created a couple of years ago. You see here the website, if you want also to have a look to the idea into the technology we are developing over there, is a spin-off where the skills are the one that probably are the one needed to deal with this revolution in agriculture. So it's a mechatronic skills. We are expert in autonomous driving, in AI solutions like object recognition, prediction, image segmentations. And we have specific skills for rapid prototyping mechanical solutions, and actually to capture and process field data in a kind of robust, smart way. And what we are trying to develop, and you will see in a while the technology that we developed under this vision, is what I like to call the Makita concept. So one battery and many, many tools. You have one battery and the drills, the blower, and the screwdriver, and this is a typical image taken from the Makita websites. So the idea is to do the same in our vision. So to have one big battery that is contained in this rover, the one that you will see in a while, and indeed that could be complemented with many implements, kind of plug-and-play implements that could be conventional implements, but also new generation implements, something that indeed is enabled and pushed by the full electric solution I mentioned before. So solution that, of course, should be multi-purpose. So it's probably as little sense to have one robotic solution per operation, make much more sense to have a philosophy that is the similar of the tractor, one PTO serving many, many, many implements. And this is what we developed. We call it Hammerhead because of the shape of the footprint. And I like to call it, again, an autonomous power bank on field. So it's an autonomous rover with a big battery on board. It's 24 kilowatt hour battery pack with also battery swap system. I will show it in a while. And also we are developing the docking station in order to perform autonomous charging, indeed with photovoltaic panels or with any other energy source. We have an electric PTO on board, driven by an electric motor in order to, again, plug different kind of implements, traditional or not traditional, with some mechanical specification that make it particularly robust. So we have 1 ton of payload. So we will see later that could be also interpreted or used as a logistic machines, able to carry big bins loaded with fluids. And actually is something very light, is less than 700 kilograms, and very, very tall, and actually very, 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 very indeed robust. And is driven by a few batteries that have been developed together with another startup of University of Bologna that is called Liber. And let me also emphasize a few concepts that are behind this small platform. So first of all, we try to push for the concept of that is much better having a large number of small tractors rather than a small number of large tractors. So if we have a big piece of land to manage, the idea is not to make one single tractor larger, but having larger number of small tractors working in teams properly, indeed coordinated. And this, of course, is something that helps the transportability of the objects. You see on the right that could be transported the rover on a minivan, and of course is a machine that is typically all weather, so could also operate in very harsh conditions and because it's very, very light, also avoiding what is typically a big problem in agriculture, that is soil compaction. So actually small, making many, many rovers smaller rather than something that is indeed larger. It's a machine that is very robust, so also could be, in principle, also used in what is typically called heroic agriculture setting with big slopes and very uneven terrains. These are a few tests we made at the Agriculture School of University of Bologna, in which we have this platform, and actually was not able to be overturned, even with big slopes. The other concept that to me is crucial, and that is part of the revolution, is what I like to call the lawnmower concept. And so basically, if you, as an example, take the garden lawnmower, if you lawn your garden every day and not just once in a while, everything can be downsized in terms of mechanical blades, let's say. Again, if you take an Husqvarna, that kind of small robot, and you see the blades are shaped blades, very, very small, not comparable with the big blades of big machines that must be used once in a while, and with a very low energy consumptions, and of course with a lot of advantages in terms of sustainability. What enables this solution? Autonomy. Of course, we can have that kind of Husqvarna solution because there is no driver on board. Everything goes outside autonomously and can operate in our garden every day and every hour of the day. And autonomy, again, and low speed, enabling a new generation of implements. Okay, not big implements, no requiring a lot of energy, but small implements, very light, and indeed with a very low energy on demand. The other concept we are pushing is the one of robotic-friendly plant. So it's even more important to design, co-design the plant with the robot itself. So if you want to make autonomous, for instance, harvesting, absolutely this is crucial to develop orchards, for instance, that are already conceived in terms of freestyle pruning, consistent with autonomous robotic harvesting. For instance, this robot has been developed in collaboration with a group, agricultural group in Bologna, and we tested what is typically called the planar orchard, where everything is pruned to be planar, to be 2D, and making a certain number of advantages, also in terms, of course, mechanization and in terms of harvesting. Also studying the inter-row that are very, very small. We have 1.5, 2 meters inter-row that is not compatible with a conventional tractor that indeed allow a big production, of course, with a lot of consequence in terms of agronomic parameter that requires, of course, knowledge, specific knowledge that cannot come from the engineering field. Last but not least, she is bellissima, in the sense that we pushed a lot of attention in taking care of the shape of the machine. She is bellissima is the title used by this pretty famous popular magazine in the United States. That title, She's Bellissima, after seeing the machine at EIMA, the big fair that we have in Bologna. Why? Because in many sectors, the machine could be also a marketing vehicle, okay, not only a production vehicle. And it's nice that has been used the female gender to indicate a tractor. She is bellissima, it's not it is bellissima. And so this is actually a video showing the machine in action. Actually, we are now completing the TRL 9. We are actually almost close to the certification on the machine. That is a nightmare, even because there are no clear certification norm about something of this kind. And we are setting up a production site in Bologna. We already sold 3 of them. And actually is 5 years that this machine has left the university labs. So we shape the final rover on field. So this is again the agriculture field that we have at University of Bologna related to the agriculture school. Many hours of test fields with many attempts that we made in order to refine and to make it suitable in it to be operated in that setting. You saw that the idea is of the electric PTO. So here you see equipped with a mulcher, but actually the idea is to unplug the mulcher and to plug any other kind of implements. And there is a completely autonomous navigation systems, open field, and indeed in row, with an autonomous detection of the end of row, an autonomous turn, and so on and so forth. Actually, you see here in this video the battery swap system that was recently introduced, and you see also a few pictures of these 2.0 Hammerhead that was presented at the Agritechnica in Hanover a few months ago, and also will be present at the next EIMA in Bologna. You see here equipped with an electric mulcher, but you see also there the electric PTO, so you have a possibility of carrying an electric implement or to carry a standard mechanical implement driven by this electric PTO. And now is basically we have the platform, a commercial platform, that is a power bank in the field to build any kind of traditional or new generation implements. So for instance, here I have a few rendering because at the industrial level, actually we have indeed close to the market, even with some of the implements that I will show, but we have some patents that doesn't allow me to show the real picture of the. So we developed the sprayer with a company in Italy called Martignani, low power electrostatic sprayer for indeed also equipped with a canopy density computation reading in order to modulate the spraying according to the canopy density. Actually, we are pushing for developing the inter-row implements, still using the philosophy that I said before. Everything is autonomous, so there is no driver on board. So this means that the machine can go often on field and could be operating at very with a slow speed. So this means that everything could be light, also in terms of implements, and this means that everything is more indeed sustainable. And a few rendering of others, again, implements that we are developing. This is a kind of flexible mulching system able to adapt to different uneven terrains that could be rolled or unrolled with this system. We have 1 ton of payload, so it's a tractor, okay? 1 ton and 700 kilograms of weight. So we put a lot of attempt in developing also the track in a certain way. So this means that this could be also the logistic machine. So one implement is a lifter, indeed loading, for instance, 3 bins full of fruits. 1 bin is about 300 kilograms. And it's, to me, the vehicle enabling industrial automation into field. So now, again, we are working on autonomous harvesting with another company nearby Bologna for picking kiwi for the time being. And is a plug in the field. I like to call it a plug in the field because actually an autonomous plug in the field. Everything is autonomous. And of course, is a machine that could perform data harvesting. So in being autonomous, going to the field very often, it's also enabled to capture data, multispectral data, data coming from LiDAR, and allowing the construction of the digital twin of the plant, of the orchard. And with, of course, the objective of having the DSS at many levels. In here, we see certain kind of points we are working out, like computation of the fruit size, presence of pathogens using a multispectral camera, canopy temperature, and so on and so forth. For instance, in terms of measuring, counting fruits, there are 98% of reliability. Right now, also trying to measure with the camera the size of the fruit. That is another crucial information in that settings. In order to close the loop, so we have one vehicle performing kind of work on field, but also harvesting data, and that could be processed in order to operate the machine itself in a very controlled and precise way. It's a machine that is suitable also for typical cobotics application context. So we have a follow-me capabilities, so the machines could follow a human being, and is teleoperable. So of course, we have a joystick, is an autonomous machine, but we have a joystick, and could be also teleoperated far away. Actually, together with Microsoft, we are developing a system based on immersive reality for controlling the vehicle from, indeed, a remote location using HoloLens. It's a power takeoff in the field. So we have really, besides the big PTO, we have also some plugs for connecting different kind of implements that typically are used in agriculture, like in light harvestings. These are my conclusions. Hopefully, I remain in my slot. So it's a big revolution, of course, not only technological. It's, as already mentioned this morning, is also a matter of changing the mindset of persons. There are big issues in terms of acceptability of this technology, of course. As I said before, it's also a matter of business innovation. And there is a big issue about certifications. Basically, we spent the last year to work on certification of this machine. And to me, it's important to have the last mile together. So this will never be a shelf machine like a tractor, but the final refinement of the machine, the final integration in the orchard management must be done together with the farmer who managed the plant. And actually, this is the experience that we are carrying out with a 2-3 visionary manager who bought these machines, trying to refine the final implement, what they really need together, but on a platform that has been developed according to the principle that I said before. Let me conclude with a small advertise. And actually, in less than 1 month, March 13-15, I organized this European Robotics Forum in Rimini as University of Bologna. That is a big event on robotics, and events that is not only a university event, but is an industrial event. It's a forum. It's a very nice format where industry and academia meet in order to discuss about robotics. A lot of workshops, a lot of round tables, and nice opening with talking about robotics and sustainability. And there are also hackathon and challenges in the forum, and one of the challenges is about fruit harvesting with universal robots. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Some of us will be happy to be in Rimini to also see you there. So we got a question about some aspects of what you said. Despite high robustness, errors cannot be excluded. What is the current approach to dealing with that during operation?
With what, sorry? I missed the...
Despite high robustness,
yes,
errors cannot be excluded. What is the current approach to dealing with this during operation?
So actually, yes, of course, the autonomous navigation system could fail in the sense that the orchard could be not ideal as in the lab, but this is the reason why we developed the platform in the last 5 years on field. To me, the right approach is to stop the machine when there is something that is not completely ideal or forecast and predictable. So it's not a big matter to me if actually the machine could stop once in a while. The right trade-off between stopping the machine and taking risk is the right answer to me to this question. The other fact that I would like to emphasize is that again, having this machine often on field, also the orchard itself or the plant itself is somehow conditioned, okay? So I will never operate on something that has been left unended for months, has been maybe already managed 2 weeks before, so everything is somehow perfect, like the garden with a lawn mower, okay? So this creates also the perfect or the ideal setting where this robot could operate and the robustness issues is somehow emphasized.
Very much. So we have another question concerning the sustainability goals. Has there been an evaluation of the processes with and without the robot, for instance, life cycle assessments?
So actually, these are the kind of course, we have done it theoretically, showing that actually the same data that have been presented this morning are somehow confirmed, and there is clear advantages in using this machine. We are really look forward in an optimistic way to the first feedback of the farmer who adopted these machines, because there is no way other than indeed seeing the machine operating for months in real fields, in real settings. So nominally, yes, practically we will see in a year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So a round of applause, please, for Lorenzo. Thank you. So in the meantime, I will present Bas, who will take over. So Dr. Bas Boom from One Planet Research Center in the Netherlands will talk about robotic pruning for orchards. He is a computer vision researcher at One Planet. And if you don't know One Planet, it's a multidisciplinary collaboration between the Wageningen University and Research, Radboud University and Radboud Dome, and IMEC as well in the Netherlands. He's expert also in object recognition, deep learning, and data fusion. I will also, so now you should be good. All right. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I would like to tell you something around robotic pruning. And I think we already saw some talks about pruning, so maybe not everything I'm going to say will be super novel. So we focused in our work mainly on apples, so on apple orchards. We are doing this work as One Planet, but we're also working together in this research with some universities in Belgium, the University of Ghent, but also the Free University of Brussels. So Garone, who is also in the audience, is one of the people who's helping me with the robotics part, and I'm more doing the sensor part. Yeah, so I think it was already said, so I'm from One Planet, and One Planet is a quite new institute. We started around, we are almost 5 years now, and the idea is to bring sort of the chip and digital technology that IMEC is developing. IMEC is for Belgian people, I think, well known, but probably not for other people in other countries. IMEC is an institute which is a research institute on mainly chip technology, so it's helping the big industry which creates chips to innovate in that fashion. So IMEC started a sort of spin-out in the Netherlands, where they work together with the Radboud University, which is mainly on health, and with the Wageningen University. Wageningen University in the Netherlands is well known for sort of the agri-food and it's the only university in the Netherlands which is specialized only on agri-food. And so IMEC tries to use its technology in agri-food using this institute. So the institute has a couple of goals. It's around a healthy life, a healthy environment, and healthy food. And yeah, I will mainly focus on the healthy environment and food, where sort of our goal within the agri field is that that everybody can grow crops for everyone. And that's sort of the goal we want to reach, but yeah, we started, of course, a little bit smaller. So usually how we work as an institute is we start with sort of the sensors. Sensors are sort of one of the core technologies of IMEC. And from the sensors, we are going to go towards a digitalized version of the world, going to do further analysis, and then we hope to apply it. And sort of in this project, the nice thing is that a lot of these things come together in one project. And the project is quite young, so we just started, but still I think we have some interesting results. So the original idea of the project was to create sort of this digital orchard. So you have an apple orchard and we want to sort of make a digital version out of it. We soon found out that this is partly interesting. However, if you only make it digital, it has no use for nobody. So we wanted to make one step further, and we found out that there is a lot of work on harvesting, and there is much less work on automatic pruning, because it's such a hard problem, or people think it's such a hard problem. So we went indeed for apple orchards for sort of the automatic pruning case, and then we are now trying to collect data in order to do that, and I will show you how far we are with that respect. So what's the current situation? So in the Netherlands we have a lot of orchards, but I think all over the world apples is a very easy grown tree, which is grown I think everywhere in Europe, in the States, but many countries. So it's I think one of the most valuable crops currently in the world. What we see in the Netherlands is that, but also I think in other parts, is that the people who currently own an orchard, they are getting older. They need to sort of bring this knowledge to the family. Often families don't want to be in this industry anymore. So where you used to have this knowledge around pruning a tree and that people could do this knowledge is disappearing. And basically the other problem is, in order to help, because the amount of hectares of your farm is getting so big that you anyway need to find external workers, you get problems with cost, with finding people, with training people, and with housing. And sort of our goal was to first start, can we collect this knowledge, and then can we make sort of a digital version of this knowledge, and then later on we hope to slowly go towards robotic support, and then maybe at a certain point full autonomy. So that is a little bit what we hope to do in our future, and I would like to present where we are. And what we saw is currently we basically have sort of this virtual reality where you can literally prune a tree yourself. That has some advantages for us. We want to still have this digital orchard, and we believe that digital orchards might make, for instance, AR and sort of robotics available on a bigger scale. And one of the challenges we still see, if you have a robot for one goal, the business case is super hard. So at a certain point, you need to have robots which can do multiple tasks. Otherwise, the business is almost unsustainable. And this is also what we found out together with experts of the Wageningen University. They're telling us, yeah, sort of having robots only for pruning might, although, so if you have an apple, sort of 1/3 of the apple, the cost was from pruning. So you can imagine, and still that business case is hard. So that's I think, the problem we have currently in agriculture is that margins are thin, and it's hard to make good money with this kind of things. So what did we do? So we started in the field. We started sort of making these LiDAR scans of the orchard at the Wageningen University. Wageningen has its own sort of experimental orchard where we got access to us because our institute is working together with Wageningen. We started making LiDAR scans. We use two systems. One is sort of a more robotic system where you already have these trees which are sort of grown sort of in a 2D system, we call it. And the other is sort of the more original spindle. I think the English word spil is the Dutch word. I'm not sure for other languages, sorry. It's more the tree which is currently mostly planted in the Netherlands, which if you go to a Dutch orchard, you will find this kind of apple tree. So we use these systems to sort of learn our systems. So we went from sort of having these point clouds to making sort of these wireframe structures. I think one of the other talks was also saying that. And then we are now in the process of sort of determining these cut decisions, where to cut these trees. And really, if you look at that tree and the scissors, they are on really the wrong place, but okay. And then we want to go towards robotics and towards sort of planning this robotic on a robotic vehicle. But we believe that sort of the vehicles are already there. You've seen the talk before me. So we don't want to make a platform, we want to make an implement. Yeah, in order to do pruning, you have to see what you want to prune. And that's where we started. So we work together with one of the universities here in Belgium, which is the University of Ghent. And we are sort of building up this sensor platform where currently we use two high-resolution cameras together with a LiDAR sensor. And also the LiDAR is quite high resolution. It's higher compared to a lot of LiDARs you currently see in the field. So it's 180 beam. And so why do we want to have this resolution? So in talking to sort of the people who are pruning, there are two things important. One is sort of this overarching structure of the tree, but the other thing is sort of these very tiny details like flower buds and leaf buds. And you need to, on the one hand, capture these kind of tiny details, but on the other hand, you need to have this bigger structure and you have to have this bigger knowledge of sort of the tree structure. And this setup, we think we can do that. And that is by smartly combining sort of these high resolution point clouds together with these detailed images. That's the way we think we can move forward and have these details which are good enough for a pruner to make a decision on first on the virtual level and then later on the real level. So after that, we already went one step further. So here you see a scanned in orchard. And yeah, it's nice that you sort of are able to have a high resolution scan. But after the scan, you also need to know where the wires are, because in the Netherlands we have wires in our orchards. You need to know poles, you want to know the ground and the water line. So basically we have here an algorithm, and you see it's not perfect. So here, for instance, the water line and the wires are sort of mixed together, but you see that we can, with machine learning, which is sort of my field, we can sort of separate the different classes with each other. You also see that there is this yellow class. This yellow class is currently not for machine learning, but what we did is we combined the scan of before and after pruning. And in yellow, you see very clearly what has been pruned. And basically, we can already use this to learn the machine learning. I think also what the other group did. The big question there is how much of these trees do you need in order to have an accurate enough system to do accurate enough decisions. And on the other hand, you might want to also go again closer to this agricultural domain where you have these experts and you want to have for them not just a black box saying, hey, you need to prune this, but you want to have sort of an explanation saying, I want to prune it in a certain way. So another thing we were able to do is sort of make multiple scans over the year. So next to only making a scan before and after pruning, we can also start monitoring the effect on of the pruning on the growth of the tree. And that, so often we get, if we have discussions with pruning experts, we get, yeah, we have these rules. Are they optimal? We don't know. We cannot measure, we cannot, and these kind of things allow them to have these discussions. One of the discussions I had with the pruner was at a certain point around the yellow things. And we were apparently not entirely clear that it wasn't for machine learning. So he started like, this one is good, this one is not good. And we're like, one of your colleagues did this, we didn't. But although he didn't have all the details, he was able to pretty much verify how good we did. So that was sort of a nice sort of validation, a conversation with this kind of pruner. So another thing which I got sort of this opportunity to work with a VR lab, which is at Wageningen. And what we created is that we can load in these trees into a VR environment. We can give somebody a scissor in VR, so you have your controller, which you can use as a scissor, and you can literally prune a tree in front of me. And so the nice thing is this gives us sort of this feedback from an expert, why he pruned the tree and what kind of reasoning he did. And currently we are talking with some experts and also with some education institutes around this. They're telling us it's not good enough, it doesn't contain the flower buds. Okay, I know, we are improving this. But this is really one of these tools where you make sort of the education, but it also allows you to have this feedback for your sort of robot in order to learn this. So after this, we went, how do we go further? Because we want to go towards the robotic field. So we contacted the VUB around sort of what can you do with the data we have. So together with them, we developed sort of this pipeline so we can go from these point clouds to meshes, and these meshes can be loaded into their collision models. So that basically allows robots to plan where they want to prune without having sort of to collide with other branches. Later on, we can also load in sort of the wires and other structures into this thing. And I got a cool video of, I think, the tree loading into the spy bullet, and the spy bullet is sort of our robot simulation environment where we can load in all this data and then we can have these accurate trees. One of the things which I found interesting to hear at a certain point is like, this is a lot of information for us robotic people. Can you maybe make it a little bit less? So we are still sort of in, because yeah, in order to, so our sensors give a lot of data, but we also need to, on the robotic side, understand how much data can we have, can we simplify stuff, how to do this correctly. So that's ongoing progress. I think one of the cool things they already created is this notion that if you want to cut, in our case, the cut decision is basically sort of a point on the branch and sort of the vector where the branch is going through. But for planning, that's a difficult concept to understand. So you basically, you can plan your arm in sort of an entire sort of, like shown there, in an entire sort of circle around it. And if you take that kind of knowledge into account, then you basically, so this is not taking that knowledge into account, you fail more. Well, if you take this kind of knowledge into account, you have a higher success rate and you have a better speed. And so, yeah, one of the challenges is that these trees are quite big. So we probably need multiple robot arms, but here, so we limit it to a certain area which the robot arm can reach. But we basically are already creating these kind of simulations models where the robot is reaching the spots quite quickly and can plan around also not hitting sort of the main structure of the tree, which is shown in red. So that's, I think, that's work of Garone, which is quite nice and which we can now take steps further in order to sort of make this. So currently we are looking into how to make this in practice, and one of the, I think, first designs, it's running again, sorry. One of the first designs is we want to make something small, so maybe put something quickly on the robotic car, and not go for the apple trees, but go for a little bit smaller trees in the beginning. You can think of vineyards, and then later on look at apple trees, but then have maybe multiple robot arms together. The problem in the Netherlands is that we don't have good vineyards, so I'm still a little bit puzzling how I'm going to solve that, or that we have a slightly different setup, which is slightly bigger. But these are some initial sort of drawings we are making, and also we are looking into, can we use these kind of, basically what they use in the field, just in robotics, with this kind of printed material in order to use a tool like that just for normal robot arm. So I think that was my presentation. If there are questions, let me know.
Thank you very much, Bas. So we have a first question. Is the virtual reality environment for pruning publicly available?
Currently not yet. We are still, it's partly we are still developing. We're also looking with some parties who want to, we got some questions from parties if they can use it. So one of the cool things is we got a question from a museum in the Netherlands, which is sort of in the food region, that they have sort of this as a demo. But yes, and we are looking together with sort of education institutes in the Netherlands to make it sort of an educational tool. Mm-hmm. But we didn't make it available yet for everybody.
Okay. And I was curious at One Planet also related to the question we got before, how do you address the assessment of the technologies that the sustainability from an environmental perspective of the technologies that you develop? Do you have practices, processes, or standards that you apply for all projects that you lead?
I think because we are working on different kind of projects, we have standards where we check ourselves too. And sort of the key technologies. And here we believe that robotics can also overcome some of the current problems in the field, although we also are aware that robotics might have energy and other kind of less sustainable things. But make this trade-off, and on the health side, there are other trade-offs to make there.
Okay, thank you. Question in the audience, maybe? Yes. Let me run to you.
Just a curiosity, in your opinion, is possible to achieve information from the pruning? I mean, in a virtual orchard, I can put real people, agriculturists maybe with a lot of experience, that start to pruning virtually the tree, and there is an artificial intelligence network that learn how to prune the tree, maybe.
So one of our future visions is, for instance, that say you have an orchard, that you have often a couple of easy decisions, so the robot can do them themselves, and then your experts can make the more difficult decisions. So they get this sort of this digital orchard. They can, so if the robot sort of starts doubting, they can say, hey, I'm going to prune here because the expert is now telling me this information, and then you can again learn from this expert knowledge around that decision. So that's one of the futures we have in mind. We don't want to, because you have already not so much expert, we don't want them to do the full thing, although because then you can better sort of do a scan before and after in our case.
All right, thank you. Another question? Okay, I have one that is maybe, I think fostering your own opinion on this. It was mentioned several times that farms increase in size. Does that cater towards automation, or could there be benefits in smaller farms?
So in pricing, it caters to automation, I think, because you can do a bigger investment. I think where smaller farms might be interesting is in sort of going towards other crop mixtures. And that you not only sort of do apples, but you do mixtures of things. But also there, it might be that is also beneficial for bigger farms. But I'm not in the farm economics, so it's still hard to say. But we are seeing anyway, if the farms are bigger, the investment can be bigger.
All right, thank you very much. So then a round of applause again for Bas. Thank you very much for your time. So with my colleagues Bram van der Bart and also Anja Jacobs, a few years ago, we had early discussions about sustainable robotics, and I think you illustrated one of the key questions that start this question of, is robotics sustainable, or how can robotics be used for sustainability? Is the question also of trade-offs. You also need to make trade-offs. You need to find a balance between the benefits of your system versus its potential also risks. And another challenge that we encountered is also, how do you define sustainability? When you hear sustainable development, it's an adjective related to development, not necessarily sustainability in itself. So it's my pleasure today to maybe hear also what could sustainable and sustainability means for agrobotics. And we have the pleasure of having Professor Yael Edan. She's also amazingly a BrIAS Senior Fellow here with us for a few weeks. She's from the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev in Israel, where she's the head of the Intelligent Robotics Laboratory and director of the Agricultural, Biological, and Cognitive Robotics Initiative. She is also internationally renowned for her research in such areas as agricultural robotics and human-robot collaboration. Perfect. Thank you. The floor is yours.
And design is in today's presentation, great presentation from Bologna. And up to now, we're more or less dealing only with the challenges and with the technologies. So we're basically after 35 years of agricultural robotics, and I've been there since the start, with a lot of different developments in the different types of fields. So we have in the crops, we have also in livestock. We didn't talk much here about livestock operations, and actually livestock operations is the first success of commercial agriculture. Robot in milking robots was really the first success way back. But there's a lot of work that has been done in field preparation, in crop care, harvesting, in the field, orchard, greenhouses, and in the whole span of livestock operations. And if we take into perspective, agricultural robotics R&D started when precision agriculture started in agriculture. We called it Agriculture 3 in the late 80s, early 90s. And I'll get back to that a bit later. We're currently in Agriculture 4 in digital farming, and we have some commercial robots entering, and we're looking to the future. So we're here looking into the future, into smart farming, into Agriculture 5, and we need to lay out the foundations for this to happen. In Agriculture 3, we're the first robots that came into beginning, and we were there at the beginning with our melon harvester there way back, apple harvester, citrus harvester, started development in the late 80s. We still don't have any commercial machine today, okay? The first commercial robot, as I mentioned, in agriculture came in 1992. It was the development started together with the harvesters. They're already commercial for over 30 years now. In practice, in farms, bought almost everywhere. So this is agriculture 3, and I'm giving the equivalence to industry 3, where we had a lot of automation, computer and electronics. In agriculture, we have sensors, we have decision support systems coming into concept. We're currently in agriculture 4, which I call digital farming. Basically, this is precision farming in practice, where we have the beginning of IoT cloud systems. We have the first commercial field robots, not for selective operations. We have some selective operations for spot sprayers. We have these autonomous machines, which we saw here. We have a lot of UAVs. And the equivalent in Industry 4 is cyber physical systems, IoT, and networks. We're looking into smart farming, the next generation, where we hope to see swarms of robots. We hope to see a lot of commercial agriculture robots out there in the field. And we will see what is needed in order to get there and in order to be able to develop sustainable agriculture robots. So in order to get from precision farming to smart farming, we have to link agriculture robotics technology with AI, with IoT. If we look at how agriculture is developing, so from agriculture 1 to agriculture 4, basically, we're increasing in the field side. At the beginning, we had no sensory information. Then we had a lot of sensory information, and we're currently getting sensory information at the plant size, not at the field size at a global level. However, we're not closing the loop, okay? And from a control perspective, yes, you have all this massive amount of information coming in, but you're not really doing much with this massive information at the plant level. And that's where we want to go to in agriculture 5. So we want to be able not to only collect the data at the plant level where we are now. We also want to be able to do treatment. We have some start of this in the smart spraying operations, in harvesting, of course, but there's nothing commercial there out there yet. So what we want is to have many of these robots connected together with the sensors, with the IoT, with the AI. We are currently, as I mentioned, I think mostly at agriculture 4, where we have a plant information. We're still doing most of our operations at the field. We do have some, and we're in precision agriculture, starting to see robots penetrate into market. Again, regarding collecting data, making sense of the data and applying decisions. So as somebody mentioned before, we want to be able to give a decision when to collect data, when to do an operation, where and how to do the operation, and that's where we aim to get at the individual plant for the smart farming operations. So the agricultural robotics requirements for agriculture 5, we need automation, we need intelligence, and we need all these to be connected together. And I'll try to give a state of the art where we are and where we aim to be. So I take it from different aspects, and it's based on Sparkle's, one of the deliverables on locomotion, manipulation, and we go from fully dependent to fully autonomous, okay? So one is fully dependent, the system is driven, not aware of surroundings. 5, we have a fully autonomous system, as we saw here before. Manipulation, again, the low level of automation where we're fully developed. We have fixed actions, we don't take into account the surroundings. So 5, we have everything autonomously. And this is for locomotion and manipulation. And in sensors, we have low levels and high levels. So at the low level, there's no sensing. And at the high level, there's a lot of sensing, knowledge decisions, cloud information, IoT, and so on. And again, from the fleet level, a low level, we only have a single robot. And where we aim to be and where we should be, and I totally agree, is that we should have these multiple small robots, first from a sustainability aspect, also from a modularity and scale-up aspect for the farmer, and from a sustainability aspect for sure for the ground and for the earth. And it also gives us the robustness, because we will never get to 100% function in the tough, complex agriculture environment. So by having these multiple simple systems, we can build up the robustness. So let's see where we are, and I'm just giving a couple of examples, and I'll probably boost up my presentation with some of the great examples we saw here. But if we look at different types of field crops machines, so for an example where we do have localized operations, the Blue River herbicide spraying of weeds, we have manipulation. Locomotion, it's still driven mostly by a person. Of course, you can hook it up easily to an autonomous tractors. Those are out there. If I look at the seed master, so we have high locomotion, and manipulation is very, very low, not individual. I mean, we have individualized planting, but there's no intelligence in this planting. And there's some site-specific harvesters out there, very few, I mean, in research, there's a lot. In practice, out in the field, farmers that buy, nothing. So we need your system out there hooked with the elements. In vineyards, wow, a lot of research. Many of the research has been done in citrus, apples, vineyards, high-value crop. Still, we don't see many commercial systems out there. So if we look at the optimum harvester, locomotion is at the 2 level, manipulation is at 2 level, no fleets. If we look at our sprayer, we have localized the same thing, locomotion 2, manipulation 2. Yes, we can bring it up to autonomous, and there are autonomous systems out there. The fleet operation of the mechanical weed remover is increasing there, so they do have a fleet of operation. And the locomotion in the vine boat, which was developed for monitoring, for phenotyping and monitoring insects and so on, is at a very, very high level. Greenhouse harvester or sweeper robot together with Wagengen. Locomotion was 3, so there was autonomous navigation of the robot along the rows. There was intelligence in the manipulation. Project finished 4 or 5 years ago, still no commercial system out there, and I don't project a commercial system out there in the next 4 or 5 years. So maybe in 2030 when we get there. We had a presentation here regarding tomatoes. Another development, Metomotion, Israeli company, developing, again, same level of locomotion, same level of manipulation. Well, is it commercial? No, not yet. Is it developed, full feasibility proven, everything working? Yes, but still you need to further develop. Orchard harvesters, as I mentioned, there's been a lot of work out there since the late 80s. One promising commercial system with a different concept, and I agree, we need to change our concept and we need to change our mindset in how do we develop, and I'll go into that in my presentation later. Tevel, small drones going there, a fleet of drones going there to harvest cheap, robustness, and you don't need to deal with all these obstacles that are going around and can be easily exchanged. And indoor farming, yes, it's more easy. It's almost an industry. You can get more into systems that have high locomotion, high manipulation, and so on. So where are we? Yes, we have proven the automation. We have proven the technical feasibility has been proven all over the place in many, many research programs. And platforms that have operated in the field, okay? I'm not talking about things that are in the lab. All these systems operate in the field. But they're single task, one big limitation, and they have limited performance, okay? The cycle time is not there, the harvest success is not there, and I'm talking about the most advanced systems. Maybe you get to 80%, on average is 66%, and the cycle times are not there for anything. And limited testing. Most of the systems were tested in one cultivar, one season, one environment. Yes, they were tested out in the field, but not multiple rotations, and there's a big problem in this. So after these years, we have limited robotic systems. Yes, automated. We have proven the technical feasibility. It's feasible to develop an agricultural robot. We have limited performance and unfeasible economics. We have the automation, so we have the locomotion, the manipulation, the sensing for a single task. Okay, now we need the adaptivity, we need the flexibility to get this to multiple tasks. We do not have yet a planning optimization of all these vehicles. There has been some planning on a fleet or organization in the field, and we do not have robots for multiple tasks. So what do we need to do in order to get from the current situation to smart farming? We need to increase the automation, increase the intelligence, increase the connective, and take care. I have not mentioned yet sustainability. So in order to overcome the limited performance, we need to simplify the task, we need to enhance the robot, and we need to define requirements. We need to increase the intelligence, and we need to increase the automation. And this is just at the low level of technical feasibility. Simplifying the task, and we had some excellent examples here. There's different ways you can simplify the task. You can use modified cultivation system, and yes, we do need to develop the crop for the robot. We cannot just throw in the robot, okay? And that's also the traditional practice in industrial robotics, okay? I'm from industrial engineering. Industrial robotics, you do not take a robot and put it on the industrial floor. You change the whole floor to fit the robot. In agriculture, you must change. You must change the crop concept. That's the only way we'll get a robot into the field. And you can do this, okay? We had a great work with Station in which we showed which crop of pepper is best fit for robotic harvesting. You need to make sure that you can see the fruit. Okay, look at the strawberries. I can try and make a robotic strawberry harvester for harvesting on the land. It's totally complex. Why not change and grow the crop so I can just easily see, and then it's not a problem for the robot. I can develop, you mentioned before, the orchard, the 2D orchard. Yes, that's the only way to go for a robotic system. Otherwise, it's a no-go. We can solve it. Automatic control, advanced systems, yes, it won't be commercial. It won't be robust. It won't be feasible. I should develop a crop that doesn't have these 3 stages of ripeness peppers on one branch. I should try and get a production that ripens the pepper equally along the season. And then I can also increase my performance measures. I can use supportive mechanisms, okay? So I can use a blower in order to see the melons and blow the leaves away. Yes, I can probably solve the problem also without a blower, and yes, we proved we can do it, and mostly at nighttime using infrared sensors, but why? I can just use a blower. I can use a flashlight, and then I can use some advanced imaging algorithms, flash, no flash, and detect the fruit. So we need to make the problem as simple as possible. We need to enhance the robot, of course. We need to improve the sensing. We need to improve the adaptation and learning. We must have the human in the loop, okay? And we need to look into more specialized hardware and alternative designs. So adaptation learning, okay? We need to make sure, if we want to make a multiple task robot, we need to make sure that it's easy to adapt from one season to another season, from one type of pepper to another type of pepper. And this requires a lot. I've been dealing a lot in deep learning with a lot of huge agriculture data sets. When you go to a new field, it doesn't work. So we need to change our concept. Yes, deep learning is a solution, but it won't solve our problems in agriculture. We need to find algorithms that are able to learn based on small data sets online, slowly. Okay, because that's the only way, because otherwise when we go to a new field, the farmer won't know how to train smartly all his data. We need multiple sensors, we need active perception, so we need to know where to look for the fruit, and we need to dynamically do sensing on a line. We need to increase the intelligence. Another area we need to increase human-robot collaboration. There is no point in making a robot that works 100%. And we heard this before from the farmer. The farmer will never allow the robot to autonomously enter his greenhouse, and he won't be there. He needs the green thumb. He needs to feel the system. So why aim to develop such a complicated robot? We're only at 80% detection. Let's develop a robot that is only at 60%. Anyway, there will be humans there. We won't be able to automate all the tasks. We'll be maybe able to automate the harvesting task, or the pruning task, or the spraying task. Okay, anyway, we'll have humans there. So have the robot go in and harvest 60%, 70% of the fruit, and have the humans come after and harvest the remaining in an optimized crop for the optimal robot. And then, of course, human-robot collaboration. We need to integrate the human and help. We saw it in pruning, and this is very, very valuable. We need to make sure that we have learning algorithms that the robots can learn from the humans' demonstrations. We need to start thinking about simple designs and different concepts for design, because most of the designs have been very, very, very traditional. We need to think about simple motions, simple complexities of the mechanical designs, and come in with new designs. But when we're dealing with these technical requirements, we must remember that we must link the robot and the sensing to the crop. Okay, it's not done in isolation. These have to be very, very strongly linked together. And you have to take into account that in agriculture, you will never get to the 1 millimeter accuracy. So you have to design your gripper so you will be able to overcome results and grip the fruit, even if you have plus minus 2 centimeters. The gripper has to have that in the design, and we show this in a very neat type of work that we did. How do you take into account your sensing capabilities when you do the gripper design? So basically, regarding technical requirements, you need to optimize the crop. You need to develop smart robot. You need to keep it simple. If we want robust systems, if we want the farmers to use it, they have to be simple. They have to be safe, okay? You need to take into account the whole aspects of the design, and you need to take into account the human in the loop. Again, we're getting there towards smart farming. We're increasing our connectivity. We're increasing our intelligence. However, we're very, very far away from even thinking about sustainable agriculture robotics. So we've dealt with the economic aspects. We've dealt with the ecological aspects. Yes, there's a lot of work that have been done. We have not hardly at all dealt with the social aspects, and that will be a key factor in order to get robots into market. Regarding the economics, so the economical aspects regarding the sustainability of agricultural robotics, we've dealt with the technical, the operational, and the economics, partially, not fully. Again, we've just started to see these concepts, but do you develop a fleet of small robots or one huge robot? Do you develop a multitask robot or a single task robot? And this has to be taken into account from an economic, operational perspective. However, as I mentioned before, you definitely do not, and that's, I think, where we are struggling at. Most of the systems to date try to work for getting a system that is 100%. And no, we should go for a system that is 60%, 70%, have 3 robots that complement, that go anyway. You'll need more than 1 robot in the field. So have several robots that perform less. You'll get a simpler system, a more cost-effective system. You'll integrate modularity, and you'll integrate robustness. And robustness is a key factor for a farmer, because a farmer will not risk. If the robot fails, his whole season is gone. Okay, so he needs multiple robots anyway there. What do we need to do with the social aspects? So when we're developing a sustainable agricultural robotics, we need to take into account the technical, the economical, and other requirements. And these other requirements are only starting to be developed. When we heard before, there's basically no standards, no requirements. How do you get these robots into the field? How do you make you get into safety standards where robots are working together with humans in the field? How do you get the farmer? And we're not considering the farmer in the design, okay? Only in recent projects, we have started to really integrate them from the beginning. One of the huge failures of the commercial milking robot was the technology was out there way before. There was one failure in one farm where the robot stopped, and then all the farmers, nobody wanted to hear. They said, we're not risking our cows. We cannot risk our cows. And it took a decade until they started to penetrate into market. So one robot that will, and we saw the same thing with autonomous vehicles, one crash or one robot that will, I'm not talking about losing the season, I'm talking about safety, and will throw out the whole idea for a long time. We need to take into account the safety, the legal issues, the business model, okay? Is this a service like we have in some places, tractors that go past through the different fields, all the logistic aspects, and so on. So all this has to be starting at the scratch, from the design perspective, in order that we start getting into sustainable robotics. Not only the technical issues and not only the design issues. So if we really want to get there to Agriculture 5, we really need to include the economics, the ecological, and the social aspects in order to be linked into all these data, into all these sensors, into all these technical developments that are out there and we're all dealing with and we are all developing, but this has to be done. So again, Agriculture 5 is currently talking about automation, intelligence, connectivity, the same thing as Industry 5. We need to add there the sustainability, and we need to add there from design, from the basis, from the scratch. How do you include the sustainability in the actual design of agriculture robotics? Of course, Sustainable agricultural robotics depends on where agricultural robotics be. So I said smart farming maybe in 2030, agriculture in 2050. That's my prospect where it will be commonly available like it's currently in industry. So we still have 20 years of research ahead of us. We'll start seeing robots penetrate into market. But again, I'm talking for a wide range of tasks. Yes, there's a lot of robots out there, but for very, very, very limited tasks, most farmers do think they're manually. And of course, a lot depends also on agriculture. In 2050, we might see a total type of agriculture where everything is in smart farms, in closed farms, in indoor farms, and so on. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Yael. I think you brought a lot of energy for the last presentation, and I think you illustrated something that I personally like in the robotics world is a no-nonsense approach. Was straight to the point, so thank you very much. So maybe to the floor for the brave. Do you have a question? We received one also on the chat. So does someone have a question? Okay, so I will go then with the question that was asked. Is after 40 years of development, it seems that we're not there yet. So, and there are quite a lot of disappointments along the road. So where do you think we are heading, and do you have any tips or clues for what does the future hold in terms of development? Do you think we will get there at some point soon or in the longer time?
Okay, so first of all, I think we're not, it was not disappointments. I think the agriculture vision was way ahead of time. Okay, so we visioned, I'm talking late 80s, agricultural robots, even before computer vision was really strongly out there and proved technical feasibility already 35 years ago, technical feasibility out in the field. Okay, I'm talking about robots, the apple harvest, the citrus harvest, melon harvest, so we're working in the field. The problem is is economics, okay, and we have to face it. And even if we look at, okay, so if we're looking, agricultural robotics is the most toughest robot to deal with, because if you're looking at space robotics, defense robotics, so you have the unstructured object, the unstructured environment, but you're paying millions of dollars. For an agricultural robot, nobody will pay. Medical robots came into practice, what, 20 years ago, 10 years ago? They have a very structured environment, okay? Everything is controlled. They have an unstructured object, okay? And they're paying a high expense for the robots. Agricultural robots is dealing both with unstructured object and unstructured environment. You cannot control it. Whatever you want to say, I mean, you can have better conditions, but it's uncontrolled even in the greenhouse. But you're not paying those costs. So it will come, okay? Because technology now is out there. We have this strong computing, we have these sensors. I would say in another 10 years, as prospected, in 2030, smart farming will be there. Now the need for example, why did the milking robot succeed? Okay, it's the same technology, okay? As the harvesting robots. Why did it succeed? Because there was a desperate need, number one. So the robot releases the farmer that he can go away. Otherwise, the farmer had to be at home 24/7. He could not go for one day away, okay? And the cost of a milking parlor is expensive. So he replaced one high cost by another high cost, which also released it, okay? A tractor is expensive. Okay, but a tractor does this one single operation. So we will see it, I would say, in around 2030. In another 5-10 years, it will start to be commercialized. But I think systems like, so not these huge systems, low-cost systems, specialized systems.
I have a kind of provocatory question. So are drones, in your opinion, really needed to harvest apples? Or, so it's a provocatory question because to me there is the big risk that trying to push into the market fancy technologies that are not really solving the problem the risk is what we mentioned before in the milk autonomous system, that maybe you destroy the acceptance of this kind of technology, also serious technologies, for 20 years, making the challenge of, again, pushing robotics into the field even more difficult. So, a couple of questions. And from a technical viewpoint, do you believe that drones, I'm mentioning the Tevel product, are really needed to harvest apples? And second question, do you believe that there is really the risk that pushing technologies that are just fancy and not really solving problems could destroy the market for the next 20 years?
So regarding drones and harvesting, I think there's a problem of efficiency. Okay, so especially if you realize the amount of apples that are on a tree, it's an enormous amount, and it will take a lot of effort. So you need, first of all, in order for a robot to be able to harvest, and really apple harvesting was one of the first robots that they started to develop 1984, 85, something like that. So for apple harvesting, you first of all need to change the orchard. You need to really make it a 2D orchard and probably have multiple arms in order to harvest. The drone, the advantage is that it can do a lot of monitoring. So the drones in agriculture can do a lot of monitoring even in the orchard. There's a great project now in Northern Europe, FARI, where they're using drones for berries harvesting with humans. The humans are doing the harvesting. The drones are just collecting the information, guiding the humans where to go, and transferring the heavy packets. Okay, so for drones, yes. For harvesting, I think there's a problem of efficiency, especially for apples or citrus, or it might be for other high-value products. But here, the load is there's a lot. The advantage, though, is multiple small systems. And I think that's the concept. You need multiple small systems. You won't be able to have this heavy robot that goes into the field and then you're risking that something is not working. Your second question, yes, I think we have to be very, very careful. I think we should advance slowly but surely. So advance with technologies for monitoring, for spraying, and that's what's going on. But providing also small systems for the small farmer. So providing modular systems that maybe you can get a small such vehicle and then have a bigger one, or have two, probably preferable than one bigger one. Have two systems. If you have a bigger farm, you buy two systems, which gives you also robustness. If one fails, you can simply exchange. So I would go and start really for cases where there is success and integrate the farmer in the loop. Okay, so there's an excellent EU project, also Wageningen, ROPS for crops, where the whole idea there is that they're integrating the farmers from scratch, from the very beginning. Farmers are there in the loop, and I think that's very important for the technology. And to develop simple systems that work.
All right, I had many questions, but I think there's a beauty in finishing right on time. So thank you all. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Yael. Thank you, the organizers. Thank you very much.